Good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. I am your host, Dr. Reggie Ratliff, and I'm joined right now with my co-facilitator, my co-host, and my co-laborer in the vineyard and investment advisor, Mr. Terrence Hollingsworth. Terry, are you there? My co-host, my
Good
co-laborer in the
afternoon,
vineyard.
or good evening, Dr. Ratliff. How are
Good
you?
evening, sir. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good. It's the fall, so
Fall
football
is
season, all
football.
those good things.
Roll Tide, baby. Roll Tide. Yes. Pop Warner football, middle school football, high school football,
Yes,
NCAA
sir.
football, NFL football, Canadian football, Euro football. All
You pretty
right.
much can watch football every day of the week now.
Every day, every night of the week. Friday Night Lights on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, Fox Sports, ESPN, Deportes. I mean, CBS Sports. I mean, you name it. They there, baby. It's that time of year. Fall
Yes,
right into
sir.
it. Yeah. So speaking of fall, let's fall into this subject of what's going on in the world of finance. What's going on today? Stock was up, closed at 400 points high today. So is that a good sign, or is that just a brief trend?
We haven't found the bottom yet. I mean, truth is that as long as inflation is an issue, we don't know what's next because until we get inflation at 2%, which is the target for Fed, um, there's a chance that they are going to continue to raise interest rates and things like that because what we know is inflation has been the key that has been slowing growth and is causing people problems. You're paying high in gas, paying high in food, and it's taken away from our disposable income. And so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, until they get that under control, you should always expect the market to be fairly volatile. But again, what that really means is that um, it comes down to what I always say: what is your investment strategy? What is your goal? Because at the end of the day, what do we know that people in commentary on television, they're looking for 12-month gains. They may be back on the show 6 months later. So they got to talk about momentum. They got to talk about companies that are doing good today, but your time horizon might be what's going to be good 3 years from now, or 5 years from
Mm-hmm.
now, or 10 years from now. So
Mm-hmm.
um, you have to stay focused on what you care about, what your goals are, and really be consistent there.
Yeah. And speaking of consistency, audience, it's all about consistency when it comes to the world of finance. The news changes every single day, and what happens, what's going on in the world of finance impacts the stock market. We discuss these things every Thursday night from 5:30 to 6:30 Central Standard Time. If it's something that talks about student loan debt or how Republicans are trying to cancel the student loan debt that was initiated by President Biden, particularly Republicans in the southern state, or if it's something that's going on with life insurance, or if it's something that's going on with inflation. Are we in a recession right now? The Federal Reserve Powell, to Chairman Powell, is he going to raise the interest rate by 75 basis points? All these things we discuss every Thursday night. So we encourage you to tune in on Thursday at 5:30 Central Time. You can reach out to me if you're interested in joining the discussion virtually at sratliff68 at yahoo.com. Just simply say, Dr. Ratliff, I'm interested in participating in this class, and I'll send you a link to access the class. Again, there's no charge for this class. It's virtual. It's a great discussion that we have every Thursday that's co-facilitated by myself and Terrence.
So, Dr. Ratliff, what are we talking about this Thursday?
We're going to talk about an oldie but goodie, a book that was written called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Terry, you want to talk about that a little bit, the prelude to it, the
Yeah, I'll
class?
be real brief, but Robert Kiyosaki, he talked about growing up and his dad, how his dad thought about money versus his friend's dad, and how his dad thought about money, and the differences in his dad working hard every day to with his money, but the money wasn't working for him. And so a lot of people talk about this. A lot of people are trying to figure out how to be financially independent. And so let's just kind of get into it. We're going to get into talking about the differences. One of the things that I do is bring what I do every day and try to simplify it for everybody and help people understand how does professional money managers make decisions about what to buy and what to sell and how long do they hold on to something and things like this. I think if I can help people understand that better, then we have a better chance of closing the wealth gap. And so let's come and talk. There always are fun conversations. It's a safe place to ask questions. That's about it.
Absolutely. So we encourage you to join us tomorrow, Thursday, and looking forward to having you on our discussion table. And let's have a good conversation, enriching. And like Terry said, there's no bad questions. There are no bad questions. This is a safe zone, safe space where you can ask any questions as it relates to finance. So thank you, Terry, for that. And we'll
See you guys on
continue.
Thursday.
Yes, indeed. I would like to introduce our guest, for which I'm excited to do so. Her name is Danielle Humes. Miss Humes is a registered nurse. More power to her. It's a very tough field, and so we thank her for her service. She is a registered nurse and a licensed financial services agent, also a certified professional trainer or personal trainer, and a fitness to nutrition specialist. She's also the co-owner of clothing lifestyle brand in indigenous royalty. As a junior broker with People Helping People agency, Ms. Humes educates individuals, families, and business owners on how to make, save, and protect their money through financial resources and life insurance products. With over 14 years of experience as a nurse, Ms. Humes has cared for patients across the age spectrum in both the school and hospital setting. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Mrs. Humes has also worked with numerous clients one-on-one and for boot camps as a trainer for a club called Retro Fitness. Alongside her husband, Edward, they are building and growing indigenous royalty into a lifestyle brand that inspires individuals to have a royalty mindset, to tap into the work of the ancestors, and live in a way that carries on the mission of highlighting the greatness, power, and strength of Black history and culture. I'm getting pumped just talking about that, talking about Black love. Mrs. Humes is a graduate of Providence St. Mel High School on the west side of Chicago. She's also a graduate of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and she's also a member of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. Mrs. Humes is a servant leader, a healthy lifestyle advocate, and fighter of generational debt and poverty. She enjoys watching her two sons play basketball, play music, watch movies, lift weights, and helping others through various hats that she wears. She is definitely a jack of trades. And so, without further ado, I'd like to bring on the show Mrs. Danielle Humes.
Hello, hello. Good evening.
How are you, Miss Humes?
I'm amazing. Thank you for having me.
Amen. Oh, I almost lost my breath, with the many things that you do for your family, for your community, and for your profession. Again, let me commend you and thank you for your service as a registered nurse. Truly, you are working in a demanding field where you putting your health and safety on the line every single day. So I thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So I didn't want to jack up your name, the name of your company. I'm like, in the.
You took your time and you said I was.
I did. I had to step back a little bit. Indigenous.
Yes,
indigenous
absolutely.
royalty.
Show y'all that shirt.
There you go.
Yes, show it. Royalty is our birthright.
That's right. That's right. So, I want to get started by talking about, your upbringing. All right. Growing up on the west side of Chicago.
Yes, born and raised.
There you go. West side is what? The best side, right? Yes, indeed. So talk about your upbringing on the west side of Chicago and propelled you to, Providence St. Mel, which is a good high school, and U of I, which is definitely a great school. Your ascension into higher academia.
Absolutely. 2-parent household, mom and dad, Vivian and Lamar. Shout out to y'all. Y'all did y'all part. I grew up on Maypole and West End as a little bitty girl. And then we actually moved over to Lockwood, kind of close to the Austin area. So, just learning to build relationships with neighbors and, just always striving to do the best academically. I loved books. I was always a bookworm growing up, reading Goosebumps and, having my favorite things to read and things like that. So that was something that always just came naturally to me. So combining that with sports, I played basketball as well. So just staying, a good student athlete, having the support of my parents to, of course, have good grades, attend good schools, do your best, put your best foot forward. And lo and behold, I did initially want to be a pediatrician, but then when I sat down with my college advisor and asked her about, how long do I have to go to school? How much does this cost? Just really digging into that. I'm like, find me something that's a little bit faster, but, can get me right into the healthcare field. She handed me a Pfizer's Careers in Nursing book. And here I am 14 plus years later. So that's how I got into nursing.
One of the things there was a couple of things that stood out from what you just said, Mrs. Humes, or do you prefer Danielle? Which one do you prefer, Danielle or Mrs. Humes? Doesn't matter.
Either.
All right. So we talking. So a couple of things stood out. 2-parent household. All right, which is great. Another thing you mentioned, student athlete. Really good. That's what your boys do, right? They're student athletes in their own right. Okay. You're building a brand with your husband. So your boys have 2 parents in their household, like you have 2 parents in your household. Talk about the importance of family and how that family structure propelled you into the healthcare field. You told me the story about your decision, but why go all the way? Because your bachelor's degree is in nursing, right? So what propelled you? Because they didn't have the problems that we have today when you were going to U of I. Was this just something that was in your spirit, or something that just drove you to help people in the healthcare field?
I've always been like a helpful, loving type kid growing up, and just loving being around people. And then also, ironically, my mother wanted to be a nurse when she was growing up, but she never became one. So it's almost like the ancestors was knowing, like, okay, you didn't do it, so we're gonna give you a daughter who does it for you. So it's almost like I'm living through her childhood dream. But again, just always having a heart for people, kind of putting others before myself. So just that natural sense of servitude, and, that translates over into my own household, being a wife, being a mom, and, now learning as I get a little bit older, though, don't forget about me. Don't forget about Danielle, because beyond the titles, beyond the roles, I'm still me. But, just at my core, I'm always helpful, always thoughtful, always giving. So I appreciate just having that role in many aspects in life.
Yes, indeed. And someone put out there in the podcast, just nurses are superheroes. You are definitely super. I can see the cape. I can see the cape. Jacket. There you go. Yes, Lord. But just for a moment, I want to talk a little bit about, because this is something that really is in my spirit, the lack of access to resources for African Americans as it relates to receiving care from nurses. And, you are connected to Maywood as a resident. And, so I'm sure you see a lot that's going on, whether it's virtually or in person. Talk about what you see as a professional in this field as a result of lack of care that African Americans receive in the Black community.
So something I've seen, even from starting off in the hospital and now translating to a school setting, I see that we battle a lot of the preconceived notions, the stigmas, the stereotypes. So a lot of times, sometimes what we don't get is because of the people who are on the other end attempting to give it. They may not be knowledgeable about how to give it, or, how we'll receive it. And then also too, there's a trust factor when it comes to healthcare that is at the core of, having a continuity of care, regardless of what age you are, regardless of what setting. If I don't have trust and faith in knowing that as my healthcare provider, you're providing what I need and it's the best for me, not just because it's in a book, but it works for me and my health, that is like essential. Like I had so many experiences in the hospital to where, the doctors would just have like those cut and dry approaches to our patients, but I would see the same patients over and over and over. So, that education and that care is not translating over to when they leave those doors. So for me, continuity of care and, having the proper type of diversity, equity, and inclusion from the care provider standpoint. You know, a lot of times that representation is key. If I'm not seeing enough of people that look like me, you know, I'm not going to feel understood. I'm not going to feel heard. I'm not going to feel like I'm going to get what I need, because the care that, you know, my other different counterparts that don't look like me may be totally different from what I need. So, you know, personalized experiences, feeling heard and valued, as far as like, okay, this is my experience. These are my issues. How are you going to personalize the solutions, and not just, you know, throw me a prescription and I'm out the door, or tell me the same thing over and over. So that's key for me. What I've seen as a nurse and helping patients navigate those repetitive issues, to where it's like, okay, I get to the point where I tell them, like, look, do this so I don't have to keep seeing you. But then also too, now on the flip side with my kids, you know, I live by the 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you implement those healthy habits,
say it again.
proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you implement and teach and value those healthy habits now, I'm not going to see you later. You're not going to be in a nursing home. You're not going to be walking with a cane. You're not going to be on 12 medications. And I'm hesitant to give them to you because I know you don't need all 12, but that's what the doctor ordered. You know, just really nailing down healthier habits with our children now, because we have the highest rate of cardiovascular issues. We have the highest rate of diabetes, obesity. I could give you a laundry list.
Hypertension too, right?
Yeah, high blood pressure, you know, and it frustrates me because sometimes we don't like to change our habits until we almost on the cuff of it being too late, or, you know, you just, do it sooner than later. So, you know, being an example for the students I take care of and for my own children is so much better than, like, you know, I tried to tell you. So, yeah.
How did you adjust your approach and your mindset when the world was shut down in 2020 because of the pandemic? You know, you're in the field and you see everything's going on, and you know, we as a people don't go anyway to the doctor or the nurse anyway until, you know,
we can't stand going.
Oh my God, why is my body breaking down? Like, what is this coming out of me? I mean, I can't feel my toes.
Oh my goodness.
So what was your experience when you were, you know, when we were going through that pandemic, the stages?
That was an interesting experience. It was one of those things like, man, we're all about to really be at home every day, all day. So it's almost like, it's like everything I have to do is encapsulated in one. I still got to be nurse. I still got to be mama. I got to be teacher a little bit too. You know, still, you know, tending to domestic duties, trying to find ways to take care of myself. Cause like, I love going to the gym and, you know, just being outside and being moving around and active. So I was like, okay, let's, you know, get some weights. Let's get some jump ropes, you know, make sure we got groceries so we're eating healthy. So it's like, man, all those thought bubbles and those different tasks, like the cake was flowing full force. So, you know, making sure the kids are doing e-learning, and then, you know, me still navigating my role as a school nurse. We wasn't there physically, but, you know, kept keeping up with emails and meetings on Zoom. Like, man, Zoom was like life. So now it's like, okay, it's so normal. So it was interesting, but it also gave me time to really start to get my thoughts together. Like, okay, how can we pivot in business? How can I pivot as a nurse? Or how can I keep myself active? What can I, you know, do with my time? Reading more, attending virtual events. Like I did a few interviews during the pandemic, just staying abreast of my roles and my business. Like, look, you know, although the world might not be in movement, I can keep myself moving some way, shape, or form. So
wow. So I love your approach. I love how you explained it, very transparent. And you talked about the things that were going through your mind as a professional. So imagine those of us who are not professionals, like, oh my goodness, is this going to end? You know, is this people dying and things like, oh my goodness. So I'm glad to hear from your perspective. I want to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about business. You know, one of the things that let's extract from the many things you do and talk about the business aspect. Okay. You got this growing business, you know, indigenous royalty. Talk about that a little bit. You know, where did the name come from? How was that birthed into what it is today?
So if you break the name down into two, indigenous, we took the S off and gave it a little spice. We put a Z to make it different. So indigenous means the original people, meaning we were the first people. So, to be politically correct, we started this. So
yeah. Hold on. So Christopher Columbus didn't find America? What? Okay.
So that's that on that, as I say.
Yes.
And then royalty, it's a given, in your mindset and how you approach things in life, thinking highly of yourself, striving for excellence in everything that you do and say and touch and believe in. So that's more so the core facets of that. My husband and I came up with that together. He said he had always wanted to start a brand since college, but he never put forth that effort. And it just kept eating at him like, man, start the brand, start the business. So like he literally came up with the concept of the logo. He designed it by hand, so it's literally the letter I and then the I of Ra together. And then we cleaned it up nicely and created the logo. So every little piece of our business has some sort of meaning behind it.
So what products do you sell?
So we have sweatshirts, hats, hoodies, jogging suits, like very, active everyday life type apparel. I'll wear it to work. I'll wear it to a basketball game. I can dress up a tee. I can dress down a tee. So, very flexible pieces in, ways to represent our culture. Like we have a Black love, like the 90s collection. So that highlights, popular Black love couples. So, I'm having a brain moment. Love Jones, like one of those. Poetic Justice. Dwayne and Whitley. So just when you think of Black love,
different world,
popular couples,
absolutely.
Martin and Gina. So if you love it and it's nostalgic in our culture, we can create it for you. So it's almost like, celebrating your culture through fashion, through art, making it fun. And it's a teachable moment too, because sometimes kids like to buy our stuff that's younger than us. And I ask them, do you know who that is on that shirt? Do you know that movie? Have you seen it? So it's a history lesson per se too. So it's really fun to kind of school the kids a little bit.
Absolutely.
Like I ain't old, but I'm older than you.
Right, exactly. And you know enough to teach them.
That's it.
And there's your website that's coming across the screen, www.indigenous-royalty.com. So check it out on the website and order. Okay, that's what's up. So thank you for that. So family, I love what you're saying. I love you talking about your role as a registered nurse, a business owner. You definitely, you work out. You mentioned fitness is important. How do we empower our people, not just Black people, Black and brown community? Maywood is changing. The demographics are changing. About 63% of Maywood now is African American. About 30% is Hispanic. But yet we're still unhealthy. So what do we do to change that as it relates to that? And we didn't even mention like juvenile diabetes. So how do we change that mindset?
I go on and on about that. I have a student I give insulin every day, so it's prominent. It's so prominent.
How do we move past that? I mean, how do we overcome that?
I think we have to start having a shift in what we prioritize, what we value. The principles that we live by on a daily basis. In terms of me myself, I'll give you an example. I transitioned from eating meat to being a vegetarian/vegan over 6 years ago, and I haven't looked back. I haven't backslid. I'm like, I just need a piece of chicken.
Right.
It was a straight health decision, cold turkey, and I did that on the strength of knowing, like, okay, at least for me personally, I felt like the way food tasted when I was younger, growing up, and how it started to taste going into adulthood, it was not the same. The way you feel after you eat a meal is different. That being overly full and just not feeling right. Because when you feel good and you look good, you do good. So for me, food is really our fuel. It's our medicine. So we have to get out of this strong emotional connection to, I got to eat this or I have to eat that, and listen to your body. Your body gives you signals. Your blood pressure is not supposed to be high for a reason. Your ankles and knees and elbows and neck and everything is not supposed to be aching for a reason
or swollen.
Don't get me started. Okay. Yes. So just getting disciplined in our habits, in our approach to our health. Our health literally is our wealth, because if we're not healthy, every other facet of life is going to start to fall apart. You can work 50 million jobs, make the most money, look the best, your hair laid to the
Right.
gods,
Right.
but what are your insides really looking
Right.
like and feeling
Exactly.
like? Are
Yeah.
you drinking your water? Are you getting enough sleep?
Right.
You don't have to take 50 million medications.
Right.
We have to get to the point to where it's like, I know better, so I just got to do better. You don't
Right.
have to wait for the right time, the right motivation, the right discipline, the workout buddy,
Right.
or 50 million videos. Just get up and move.
Yeah.
Walking is one of the most free, healthy exercises in the world. Walk
Absolutely.
around the block. If you don't want to walk around the block, walk around your backyard. Use the
Right.
stairs in your house. Get
Mhm.
creative. Think
Yeah.
outside the box. Stop making excuses. Move your body, and your body will thank you later. It might
Mhm.
hurt a little bit. You might be a little sore. You might be a
Mhm.
little tired. But again, your body has to adjust to those changes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like diamonds grow under pressure, you have to put yourself under a little bit of pressure, a little bit of discipline, a little bit of perseverance and persistence, and you're going to reap the benefits of it on the back end. And then guess what? If you have children, they're going to see you doing it, like, okay, mommy's staying consistent. She's staying committed to this. This
Mhm.
is important to her. So they start to emulate us.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I have a basketball house. We some athletes in here. We like to move
Right.
around. Like if we
Right.
get the aching or we too tired or we haven't done nothing in a minute, we don't feel right. So
Right.
we movers and shakers in this house. We don't sit and do games. We don't sit and look at TV too long. No, get up and move.
Mhm.
Movement has to be so essential. Like seeing some of the kids at my school I work with, my fifth graders, they're struggling to breathe. They don't like to participate in PE.
Mm.
You couldn't tell me nothing in PE. My stuff was sweated out. I was having a ball and I stayed healthy. I wasn't in the nurse's office. I didn't have health issues. So we have to also set that example and show our kids, like, look, this is important to your health too. Because childhood obesity, and as you mentioned, childhood diabetes, that's important. Our children shouldn't have to be dealing with that stuff so early on in life. Get them to drink their water, teach them how to eat fruits and vegetables. They should love that stuff. Like my kids be looking at me crazy, like, Mom, there's no more apples in the refrigerator, no oranges, no bananas, no nothing. Go to the store, girl. What you doing?
Right. Right.
So like that's important,
It
because
is.
those habits started early. As
Right.
babies, they were looking for that stuff. So train your kids' palate. Stop eating these Takis and hot Cheetos and burgers from the restaurant three,
You
four
preaching
times a
now.
week. Like,
Yes. Yes.
okay, I'm getting off the soapbox.
No, we love it. We need some extra soap, okay? Because yeah, those Takis, man, you got to fight the kids to get out their bags. Even though it tastes
I
good,
take
it's
them
not
from
good
my
for you.
students. I'll be like, give me that. You can
Right.
come back and get it at the end of the day, maybe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I mean, it tastes good, but it's not good for you.
Mm-mm.
So I love that. I love the energy. You said you're an athletic family. You guys doing it. You leading by example. All right. The kids see you and daddy working out and doing the things. That's what it's all about. I mean, really. And so, with the time we have remaining, I want to ask you about Maywood. Okay, you're resident of Maywood. Um, there's a lot of things that you see in social media and in the news and things like that. From your perspective as a resident, what do you see and how can we, get Maywood back on the right track? Not just the village, but the schools, because we know the school started and there are some things that's happening that's unattractive. How do we, from your vantage point, how do we get back on track? You're a parent, you have a son who attends, District
Urban.
89 school, Urban Elementary. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I went to Garfield. I won't hold it against you because he
He
goes.
went there before he transitioned over. Then I
Okay.
have a
Yeah.
fifth grade at Garfield, so I
That's
got
good stuff.
two.
But Garfield, when I went there in the early 80s, it was K-8. So I know it
I
changed.
heard they
Yeah,
told you
those
that
are good old
story.
days.
That's
But
awesome.
but nonetheless, he attends, Urban. How from your perspective, because you're best practice. You're example of best practices. You have successful boys because you and your husband are successful in your own right. How do we get back on track with the schools and the community?
It has to be a solid partnership between the schools, the communities, and the families. For me, I personally value being an active parent. Like both of my kids, last week or the week before, had the open houses at both of their schools. Luckily, they weren't on the same day and same time, but I made it my business to be at the open houses, to get into the school, to meet the teachers for this school year, to have those conversations, to ask questions, to build those relationships. And then also too, from what I'm seeing and monitoring so far, with District 209, the leadership really has to step it up and really take a high level of accountability and understand that at the end of the day, these children need to be educated. They should be at the forefront. All egos and things that they're holding so closely to where no one can get on one accord, all that stuff needs to start being put to the side because the children are suffering. I'm seeing news reports about kids not having enough teachers, so they're in the cafeteria and the auditorium, like they're losing learning time. I've seen articles about the proficiency of math and reading and science and all those core subjects they need to learn to become successful adults in reading and writing and manage money and all that stuff. If they're not learning it now, they're going to continue to struggle. So that cycle needs to be broken right now. So the relationship between the community, the parents, the leadership, the teachers, that has to be solidified. I'm so grateful I got to meet my son's 5th grade team and my son's 8th grade team. And those teachers, I heard it out of their own mouth that they treat my children as if they're their own. Those are the type of teachers that we need across the board. Yes. If you don't have them, go find them. And the ones that you have, find ways to keep them. We have to value those gems that we have in our schools because they're starting to become far and few between. You have to love being a teacher. You have to love working with children and having a partnership with the parents. You guys have to be a team because what you teach when you have them in your care and when they come home, all of that has to go and flow together. So for me, what I've seen the last few years being in Maywood, that relationship is starting to break down and it needs to be rebuilt. And honestly, sometimes if you cut off the head, the neck follows also. And that might be a harsh reality, but it's true sometimes. If you don't have the best interests of children at heart, if you can't put your ego aside or anything that is to the detriment of the students, the staff, and the organizations that you have power and dominion over, and you're supposed to protect and lead,
yes,
that's not your role. So respectfully, you got to step out the way and get someone in there that can do a better job sooner than later. Because guess what? This is going to be like a domino effect. It's not going to just magically fix itself. You can't put a Band-Aid on it. Right. Like even from seeing last year, the meetings that they were having, and it just was so much back and forth. It seemed like not many people were listening, or the ones who were listening were outnumbered by the ones who weren't. So it has to be a united front, as far as what the children need, rightfully paying the teachers and staff. Like, we all have important roles. When we're done teaching the kids, we do have a life to live as well. So if I'm struggling outside those doors, guess what? I'm struggling to overcome. Come into the building as my best self to teach your children and to lead them and guide them. So if that partnership doesn't get fixed, Maywood is going to continue to be on the forefront and have some negative issues. So
yes,
being a parent of 8th grader that's about to transition into possibly one of these buildings, I'm concerned. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes and ears open to the streets because I'm not liking it.
Yeah, definitely prayers going out. Very powerful words, Sister Danielle, and couldn't put it any better because a community that's divided will not stand. Nope. And it will definitely crumble. And so with the last moments that we have, I want to give you the final word, as far as like addressing our audience on this podcast. And we're so thankful that you have taken time from your schedule to speak with me this evening. And I'll give you the final words over the last minute or two. And whatever's on your heart and your spirit, you have the floor.
All right. So just to, recap some of the major points that we've talked about, I truly am at heart a servant leader, an advocate for health across the board, not just physically, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. Being a licensed financial services agent or brokerage that, taps into my demographic, my Black and brown people, this month, September, is actually Life Insurance Awareness Month. So again, being able to lead by example and be at the forefront of putting my last name first, building my legacy first for me, myself, and my sons sons and generations to come, that is also important to me as well. There's over half of the population may also be insured, through your job, or you may have your own private insurance and things like that. But most people are underinsured. We're seeing so many GoFundMes. We're seeing people here today and gone today, especially our youth. That is a big, big, big issue as well. So, protecting what matters most to you, making sure that that's the top priority, making sure that that is something that you have in place. Please feel free to reach out. I can also help in that area as well. But again, at the end of the day, we have to prioritize our health across the board in so many different areas, taking care of our homes, our health, making sure, we're implementing healthy habits and getting out and moving, mental health, whatever you believe in and do spiritually, maintain that, because that's important. This is a important element of your health as well. So if this isn't functioning, your heart isn't functioning, your body isn't functioning, you pretty much get where I'm going with that. So making sure our families are well taken care of, our finances as best as we can. If you don't have resources for that, definitely tap into individuals who can help, guide you in those decisions and educate you on the proper, options and resources. And, I'm just grateful to be in a profession that allows me to touch so many lives, so many families, and just to be an asset to my community. So I'm grateful to have had this conversation this evening. Thank you to Dr. Ratliff and Terrence, and I appreciate being on the show tonight.
It is our pleasure. Registered nurse, Mrs. Danielle Humes, the great work that she's doing, taking care of yourself, taking care of our children, taking care of our family, taking care of our community. I'd like to thank again Ms. Danielle Humes for coming on our podcast. Like us on Facebook. I am Dr. Reggie Ratliff. Look forward to you joining us next time. Have a blessed evening. Take care and good night.